You know, I want to talk about what's happening in Washington. I could have picked a bunch of clips to show you from the hearing in Washington. Amy Coney Barrett, obviously in her second day of her tryout before the Senate Judiciary Committee and ultimately through the whole Senate in being appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. And I want to mention a couple of things about this, though, that really, while this itself is a battle, and of course, barring some completely unforeseeable circumstance, she will be confirmed because the Republicans still have a majority of the Senate, and they still can confirm her to the Supreme Court. She'll likely be confirmed, but I want to point out several things about this whole process that are really helpful to the American people. Because what we're actually watching the left do in countless instances is to project what they're doing or what they plan on doing as an accusation, a false accusation against the Republicans for things they're not really doing. So, for example, there was a question at the debate last week asking whether or not Vice President Biden, he who would be president, would you pack the court? In fact, they asked in the vice presidential debate. So Kamala Harris gave the not answer. But this is a really important issue, whether or not you would attempt to overthrow 150 years of tradition if the Democrats win and literally pack the Supreme Court. Pack the Supreme Court means add more people to the court. We've had 9 people as a kind of standing rule for our Supreme Court for 150 years. But now, because the Democrats are upset that there might actually be a conservative majority on the court that actually follows the Constitution of all outrageous things, they are talking about packing the court. A lot of hints about it, a lot of threats about it. Neither Vice President Biden nor his running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, would deny that. In fact, Biden said in a recent, I shouldn't call a news conference, that gives, or press conference, it gives too much credit, as though he's actually standing there and answering questions for 10 minutes. But he did answer a reporter's question about packing the court and said the American people are not entitled to know what he's going to do about that. Joe Biden, he who will be president, answered to the media, you're not entitled to know what you'll find out after I'm elected, whether I'm going to pack the court. Obviously, the answer is yes. So here we are, Amy Coney Barrett being nominated under the circumstances precisely provided by the Constitution. A president nominates, President Trump, who is in the White House, nominates a candidate, goes to the Senate, which has Republican majority, and it's the Senate job to up or down vote whether she can get in, whether she becomes a Supreme Court justice. And yet during the hearing, all these Democrat senators, when they're the ones, their party is talking about packing the court, were actually accusing the Republicans of packing the court. I mean, these are, again, Democrat senators accusing Republicans of doing exactly what they're doing or plan on doing. There were numerous Democrat senators who said that. That's kind of one whole aspect of this that's very political. Democrats just cannot tell the truth to the American people. They can't deal with the truth. And so they make the accusation, this is called projection, against Republicans of doing exactly what they plan to do. But the second thing that's occurring in this, and it's really a lesson for all of us concerned about America, our future, our country, what's going to happen to our country, is watching the kinds of organizations weighing in on this Amy Coney Barrett nomination. So you have one particular organization that claims to be conservative, that claims to be on the liberal side, but you have an organization that is a fake Christian organization called Faithful America. Faithful America. Isn't that a great name? Faithful America. And for you to understand so this Faithful America is claiming to be a bunch of genuine Christian Americans deeply opposed to the nomination or confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett. These are people claiming to be Christian, so you'd think, well, they're probably on the conservative side then, but they're saying, no, we're conservatives and we're opposed. We want you to vote down this nomination. Faithful America. But let me just ask Matt the Wonderful. There's a clip I sent you to play, Matt, of this group, Faithful America, and it is from the publication, The Stream. This is a little clip of a video that my friend Kelly Kohlberg put together related to organizations cooked up by Soros and made to look as though they are serious Christian organizations. You play that clip, please, Matt.
To give the impression of the moral high ground, The Soros Network funds what they call evangelical and Catholic mascots to serve as surprising validators for their anti-Christian projects and candidates. Imagine the evil of using a Christian front to de-Christianize the culture and nation. In this video clip from the New America Foundation, an executive admits their rent an evangelical model of social change.
Doing a sort of rent an evangelical, as we used to call it on the national security side, rent a general model.
The network funds religious groups including Jim Wallace's Sojourners, PICO, Faith in Public Life, Faithful America, Richard Cizik's New Evangelical Partnership, Telos, J Street, National Council of Churches, Evangelicals for Human Life, Catholics United, Catholics in Alliance for the Common Good, Catholics for Choice, and through the network's National Immigration Forum, they fund religious groups advancing open borders, amnesty, and voter registration for their new America.
That group that you were just reading about, the Soros people who actually use, Soros person use the expression rent an evangelical, one of the groups they formed is Faithful America. As I said earlier, I gave a speech at lunchtime today, and I was saying, it sounds like one of those groups you get a mailing in the mail, you think, yeah, we should write a check, sounds good, I'll write a check, they sound good. You get people diametrically opposed to everything Christianity teaches, diametrically opposed to what the scriptures actually say, antithetical to the idea of America, but they get funding and legitimacy out of Soros, and so Faithful America, a radical leftist anti-Christian organization, weighs in to say they're against Amy Coney Barrett. Boy, do they have good reasons, blah, blah, blah. These are just people. This is how the left participates in one of the most serious and solemn occasions that America faces, which is the appointment of a new Supreme Court justice. They participate by projecting a lie and saying that the Republicans are packing the court when all they're doing is following the constitutional process that has been followed ever since we had a Supreme Court justice appointed in this way. So you have Republicans following the Constitution, Democrats calling them court packers. You have organizations intentionally intended to undermine the place of faith in America, underline Christian America. You have the rent and evangelical type groups coming out of the Soros funding, and those groups weighing in against Amy Coney Barrett and claiming somehow she doesn't really stand for what the Republicans stand for. So they have these concocted organizations outside of the political arena and duping people not paying attention to thinking, wow, there are Christian organizations that oppose Amy Coney Barrett. Maybe I don't understand everything. Maybe I should go back to the drawing board. Maybe I have more to learn. A similar group, Evangelicals for Biden. In fact, they even have pro-life evangelicals for Biden. And so they explain on their website about pro-life means. This is pro-life evangelicals for Biden, which is like an oxymoron of the century. But pro-life evangelicals for Biden, they're actually 100% pro-abortion. So they're not pro-life, they're pro-abortion, but they say, but, beside that one issue where, then they go on to essentially say that they are just pro-life in all sorts of other ways because they really are, supportive of socialism and having government take care of everybody from cradle to grave. That is their version of pro-life, is that they're supportive of life, of a Marxist agenda. And yet they use the term pro-life evangelicals for Biden. Actually, to be really clear, I think I said that backwards. I want to make sure of something. The group does say, on this pro-life evangelicals for Biden, they do say, well, we're really pro-life, so that they're not 100% with the Democrats on abortion. But they say that doesn't really matter that much. What we mean by pro-life, and then they mean basically the pro-Marxist fund government and enable government to have control over the entire life of every single human being. Pro-life in terms of massive Marxist programs funded by the federal government. All of that, they say, makes them be the pro-lifers for evangelicals for Biden. My point in all this is we're having a very serious hearing on one side of the aisle in Washington, and just a radical meltdown by the left. I almost played for you the question by Senator Klobuchar, the one who ran for president, Amy Klobuchar. She is on the Senate Judiciary Committee, so she was able to ask questions, and she had just a mere meltdown, and basically saying, her comment was, well, if we get Amy Coney Barrett in the Supreme Court, she'll erase the agenda of Justice Ginsburg? Well, obviously, first of all, she's admitting that Ginsburg and the left has an agenda at the Supreme Court. It's not an agenda of finding judges to follow the Constitution. It's an agenda of pushing the radical leftist mission on issue after issue and finding some way to justify it under the Constitution. Not the same thing as actually following and interpreting the Constitution. Last point on this whole thing is there was a short little exchange between Senator Cornyn this morning on the Supreme Court, this nomination. He's a Judiciary Committee, so he gets asked a question. He's asking a question of Amy Coney Barrett, who is soon to be a Supreme Court Justice, and here's a quick clip of that.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Senator Cornyn.
You know, most of us have multiple notebooks and notes and books and things like that in front of us. Can you hold up what you've been referring to in answering our questions? Is there anything on it?
That letterhead that says United States Senate.
That's impressive. Well, Judge,
you know, why I think that's so cool, and obviously I'll say, clearly that was orchestrated. Clearly, Senator Cornyn knew that Amy Coney Barrett had nothing on her note. She's just sitting there answering questions. But when you recognize the kind of questions you're asked, when you're in the Senate Judiciary Committee and you're up to be nominated, you've been nominated to serve in the Supreme Court, there are all sorts of gotcha questions. The left just cooks them up all day long, and twice on Sunday, I mean, all day long about, well, in this case, the court held this, and then this case, the court held this, and how do you explain your one sentence in a footnote you wrote 10 years ago? How do you explain that? There are endless efforts of the left to contort decisions that they're reading from, decisions she has written, past Supreme Court precedences. All they're really trying to do, all the left is trying to do, and sitting in that Judiciary Committee hearing, all they're trying to do is try to trip her up, to get her, Amy Coney Barrett, to say something that they can attack. That they can say, well, she said that this case means X, but everyone knows it means Y. Or she said this, which clearly means that she is going to interpret this way. They're trying to find a way to peg her. You're not, even though you're specifically not supposed to try to ask them questions like, if X, Y, and Z happened, how would you rule? You're not allowed to ask those kind of questions, and the senators know that. But they try to get as close as they can. But her ability to sit there and answer the substance of questions coming at her from everyone, and to have nothing, have zero, zip, nada, no notes in front of her, this is a sign of a brilliant person. A brilliant person. B, someone not easily flapped. Not someone who's thinking, I'm really, really nervous, I better have all my notes in front of me. She knows what she thinks, she's very self-assured, and she's willing to just get up there and show them who she is. She's obviously doing very well in the hearings. It's frustrating the daylights out of the left because she's just as qualified and competent as everyone's been saying she is. And so this is where we are with the Democrats. I just think that I played the Cornyn thing because it's just kind of fun and illustrative of how brilliant she is. But the other point that about the whole process, which is the left is trying to do anything they can to block her from getting on the Supreme Court, going to the extent of using Soros-funded organizations that adopt names that are exactly the opposite of who they are. Faithful America, what they mean by that is absolutely anti-American Christian faith, anti-American faith and the rights of religious freedom. That's who they are, but they form an organization called Faithful Americans. There are literally dozens of other ones, and in that little video clip I showed you, I think it's linked on our website. If it isn't, I'll get it there, but it's a brilliant clip. A lengthy piece was done at the website for American Evangelicals that spells out all the ways, the kind of tangled web that Soros has woven as he brings together his billions and billions of dollars and feeds it and slimes it through all sorts of creepy organizations that work essentially to undermine America, undermine American freedom. Very similar to what he does, undermines the rule of law in the country by getting district attorneys into office who are not committed in any degree to the rule of law, very much instead committed to the social justice warrior agenda, as the one in St. Louis we talked about at the start of the show. And then you have this kind of thing too, organizations funded with his billions that work against the interests of America while claiming to be representing the interests of America.